voting is on.
We can get started with your report then.
Okay. So I've submitted the necessary information to FEMA and MEMA for damages from the December 18th storm. Our total is somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000 to $40,000 worth of damages between street traffic signals and street repairs and man hours, equipment use, and so we haven't, obviously that process takes a while, so we'll be, at some point we'll hear back whether the county has qualified or not. Preparation for the last storm, we fared pretty well, didn't really have anything in the way of significant damage. I've spoken with Adam already this morning, and they'll be doing prep today. We expect flooding at the harbor again. We did have some flooding last storm at the harbor. We expect that again. But outside of that, don't really expect much in the way of significant issues. This week, Cassell's been on site, well, in Ellsworth, and our significant portion of our staff, the clerks out front and finance, as well as utilities, have been training all week on Cassell. We are finally putting the final touches, thanks to a lot of hard work from Carrie and Human Resources on the paychecks, payroll, and we're hopeful and planning that we will be 100% using that program on February 1 for all departments and all employees. So that's been a long battle, but we're finally in the home stretch with just a few tweaks that need to be made, and then some retraining for some management folks, and videos are being prepared to be sent out to all of the staff to teach them on exactly what they need to do for their payroll. And budget. I have received several department head budgets, so I've begun the process of going through those budgets, and for any potential changes that I anticipate or would like to see in their budgets. And they're all due by the end of January to the manager and finance director, and we will be slowly plugging away at that process to start to formulate the manager's budget. And once that's completed, hopefully in early February, we will get that out to the council, hopefully mid-February, and then probably mid-March, start scheduling the budget workshops. The budget's going to be very different this year because we will be implementing this budget in Cassell, and certainly Ann can speak more to that, but the Cassell software is going to dramatically change the way we look at our budget and what our budget looks like. So currently, the budgets that are being created by staff are being created in the fashion in which they have been for years, but likely what the council will see will be kind of a mixture of the budget as it's being presented by the department heads, but also that being translated into a Cassell, into what it's going to look like in Cassell. So we're going to try to, as much as we can with the resources that we have, we're going to try to essentially create two budgets. One for you to look at that's going to mimic what you've seen in the past, so you understand what the comparison is to previous years. And then you'll have the Cassell budget, what our final budget will look like when it's implemented and utilized in the Cassell software, because it's going to look different. So But we're gonna try to make it as seamless as possible for the council, especially the counselors who have been through the budget process previously, to understand and be able to compare current budget figures to previous budget figures, so it all makes sense in the end.
Excellent.
So the work is ongoing with that process. We're really just in the early stages. I have been in communication with the school department, particularly with Amy Bowles, and I know they are well into their, again, the early stages of their budget process, working with their management team to get their budgets put together so that she can get that soon, and then they can begin to do their work on the school budget and their finance committee. And I will also, once she does have some even preliminary type of figures for the school budget, I will ask that she comes to this group to present, as she did last year a couple of times early on in the budget process, just to kind of keep the finance committee abreast of what's going on and what they're looking at for significant changes to their budget or needs for the upcoming school year, so.
I was in contact with her as well. We've been texting. She knows that, we're looking to see some preliminary information and so.
Yep, she was she was very transparent last year, very eager to come and speak to the finance committee, and I think she did 2 or 3 finance committees before they ever had before we ever had a actual workshop with the school department. So I would anticipate, and based on my conversations with her, that process will be continued from last year. So.
Is there any preliminary indications of any, is it too early to know, like, what to expect as far as any big changes or?
It is really early to tell right now. I think that overall, last year, we saw a big increase in just our operating expenses for fuel and other things, that were based on inflation that we were seeing, across the country in all sorts of different arenas. We don't anticipate seeing that type of operational increase this year. So I think that operationally, we should be able to keep our budget relatively flat without any significant increases. Again, we saw a lot of those last year, so we should be good there. We do have some obvious, what we know that we have some infrastructure needs and some capital planning that needs to take place. So depending on, what we're able to work into the budget as far as those projects go, and we have some pretty significant, not significant, but we do. I already know of a few personnel requests type of things that we'll be working through and vetting and have to make some decisions as to, as far as staffing goes, if we can justify any additional staffing. So those are really probably the big 2 areas. I think, again, operational wise, we should be able to stay relatively flat, but capital wise and potential additional staffing wise, in some areas where we need some additional resources, will be the big areas that we'll have to really take a look at to decide whether those things are justified to be funded. So.
We also have union negotiations, 3 of them, so hearing how that's negotiated and.
Yeah, unfortunately, typically in past years when we've had years where we've had contract negotiations, we haven't really budgeted for those increases, which is actually not this past year, but the year before we saw a pretty dramatic increase in, for example, the police budget, because our contract negotiations weren't included in the payroll. So when we actually caught up the next year, we had 2 years worth of pay increases that we had to include that we included in the budget. So artificially inflated the payroll line for that year. So this year, with Public Works, Fire being the major two contract negotiations, when we look at their payroll, we will probably add a small increase percentage-wise to that payroll figure, just so that we don't have that huge spike
Yeah,
in
that
future,
makes sense, yeah.
in future years. It may not, I would anticipate that it won't equal the full amount of what the negotiated amount may be, but it'll be something to help ease that
Just a placeholder, basically.
significant spike, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so those two contracts will be, that will be taken into consideration when they prepare those budgets. That is really all I have financially wise from this past week.
Excellent.
Ann?
Okay, with respect to budget, like Glenn said, we're doing our best to line up the new budget accounts with the old budget accounts so you can compare and contrast how they look. I'm trying to, one of my goals and something that many members of the management team have asked me is to make a budget that's more usable for them, because that's sort of the point of the budget, so that they have a tool to plan workflow and spending and stuff like that. And just the streamlining of the chart of accounts, everything's gonna kind of look different. But I've got a translation going on between the new budget accounts and the old budget accounts to try and line them up. So you'll be able to look at sometime, I don't know if it'll be apples to apples, but it'll probably be apples to pomegranates.
I like
So they look
both,
alike.
that's-
And then, as you can see from my report, I've been in Cassell training this week, which was really great. It's a very straightforward program, and it does so much more of the accounting on its own. It's just really powerful. I'm really impressed with it. I wasn't really sure what we were getting into because I wasn't around for the choosing of the software, but I'm happy with it, and I think it's going to be great moving forward. I talked to Amanda about it because obviously her department is going to be affected by it. And ultimately, my goal is to transition away from Trio just to streamline the system even more. But that's a process because you know everybody loves change and embraces it. So,
Didn't we just start on Trio?
yeah, but just having two softwares
Yeah, no, I know.
is just a hassle. And there's a lot more work for the finance department with it set up that way.
And the new software can handle everything
yeah.
Trio does,
Absolutely. I've been doing interviews for the new deputy finance director. I have a couple of really good candidates right now. So it's just a matter of making the money work and going to, speaking to their references. I thought I had somebody, but I got outbid by another organization by a pretty significant amount, so. But I do have two men that are really interesting candidates. One of them has a really strong analytical background in government and government agencies as in accounting and finance. And then the other candidate has been running a large nonprofit with multiple campuses. So he's very calm and really good personality, and I think that would be a nice addition in that role, because there's a lot to do in that role. And you have to answer a lot of questions, and we're about to transition to this new software, which I anticipate is going to have everybody on the run in the beginning. But I think if we can be ready for that, and we plan to make some cheat sheets for people, you know, preemptively create them in anticipation of what we know they're going to come and ask us, so.
When do you expect to maybe have a know that you'll, about one of those candidates?
Hopefully next week.
Oh, great.
It's very competitive for somebody good, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't, I really want somebody with some experience in just life and working and what that's about. I would love to have an accountant, just a straight-up accountant, but to have one that has experience and is kind of seasoned in operation, it's way out of our, right now, with the way the market is, it's just way out of range from a salary standpoint. And the fact is that young, reasonably young people just aren't moved by benefits the way other people are. They don't care, they're all immortal. They want money, so. And then there's the housing issue. I've had a lot of questions about that. People looking to move up here, they're struggling to find housing. But these two candidates are homeowners. They live in cities with a substantially higher cost of living than here, so that's another reason I'm considering them, is I think the transition and the move and the reasons for moving. We've added a lot of questions like that into the interview process. Why do you want to come here? Have you been here before? Do you know what it's like? It's different than living in Chicago,
Slightly different.
Come February, you might, the grocery store closes at 7. Are you cool with that? So we've had a lot of those kind of interview questions. And pretty much, other than that, this week, that's about all I've been doing, is a lot of behind-the-scenes accounting things and training on the new software and getting ready for budget.
Excellent.
Great. Can you remind me how long are we still in the freeze?
We are.
And does that last until the new budget? No.
It'll last probably till, well, first of all, it's not entirely been embraced, much to our chagrin. But the second round of tax payments is in March, so I anticipate that we'll see a good amount of revenue come in then.
Okay.
It's starting to pick up now,
Okay.
so it's good. After the first of the year, people start getting their tax returns.
Do they send out reminder notices, like reminder postcards still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she's gonna, the tax collector is gonna be sending out reminder notices probably, early February.
Yeah.
The anticipation, I spoke with her at length when we went into the spending freeze, just due to concerns about the revenue that we had, and regarding how much revenue we could anticipate from the second round of taxes. Like, I wasn't sure if people pay 50-50, or if some people pay their whole tax bill, in April when they get it. In September when they get it. But she assured me that past practice has been that we receive about 50-50. We receive about similar amount the second round that we do the first round. So that was reassuring to know that we can anticipate a similar type of influx of revenue than what we saw in September. So
Yeah, maybe it's changed a bit just because of the price, the cost, but it used to be like 65-35, because we had a lot of people that would pay both halves in the beginning, just so they don't have to worry about it, but I'm sure people are trying to save their money a little bit and make it work for them,
Yeah.
so.
Well, that was
Interesting.
that was
Yeah.
kind of my concern and my fear, but in talking with her, her experience has been that
Yeah.
it's been closer to a 50-50 split, so that was reassuring.
Very interesting. How
And I
times
think-
change, huh?
One of the advantages of the new budget, which Glenn and I talked about, was when the managers can see where we are from a revenue standpoint and look at where they are from a spending planning standpoint, I think we won't have fewer of these spending freezes and this sort of panic at this time of the year. So that's my goal, and it runs more smoothly. And that we don't have to take down the TAN, since they just keep going up, the interest, so we're really, really trying not to take any money off of that.
Yeah, good. That's helpful. I have a few questions. I'm just going through the warrant. The Town of Franklin City monthly report. This is just like, why are we paying the Town of Franklin, or
It's
what is?
for clam,
Oh,
it's
the
clam licenses.
clams.
Okay, great.
Yeah. They're the fiscal agent now for the
Okay.
7-town
Yep.
And so we're just reimbursing them.
So,
Someone
so
in
it came
Ellsworth
in, bought theirs,
bought
and we
theirs,
sent it
yep.
to them. All right, I figured it was something like that, just making sure. And then I have a question regarding general assistance. Can someone explain to me the sources of revenue? Where, do we get money from the state?
Yes.
Okay,
70%.
70%, okay. and-
Allegedly, it's going to 90 if it gets through the legislature, so.
Okay, and do we?
Focus
how-
hope
on
so.
if.
Yeah. Yeah, and how do we, I guess, and then do we budget for general assistance just based on past, here's what we've.
So Tina, our general assistant person,
Yeah,
she budgets based on past, but she also tries to anticipate. So like this year, her budget went up.
yeah,
For fiscal year '24, for fiscal year '25, it's going up even more
Exactly.
because she's blowing her budget out of the water, particularly with housing. Her
Yeah.
housing expenses are just through the roof.
yeah,
And so she's anticipating, I know she has, because I've talked to her about her budget. She's increasing her budget in order to be able to accommodate.
yeah,
And there is a threshold, I think she said it was around 255,000, that if the city expends beyond that threshold, then the state reimbursement goes up to 100%.
okay,
She doesn't think, she doesn't think she's going to get there this year. But, I mean, we are only into January, and like I said, she's already exhausted her budget and then some. So, again, she doesn't think that she's gonna get there, but if her caseload continues to grow at the extent that it has over the last couple of years, she anticipates that it won't be long before, and it could be FY '25 before she's looking at potentially exhausting that threshold and potentially receiving 100% reimbursement from the state, just because of the amount of funds that she's expending, particularly again in the housing area.
I wonder if that's a trend, I mean, I would assume it's a trend we're seeing around the state, but,
Around the nation.
around the nation, yeah, but I wonder if the state is anticipating if suddenly everyone's saying, oh, we hit the threshold, give us 100%, so, yeah, it's a bigger question for today, but that's helpful, thanks for updating me on that.
And Tina's been doing it a very long time. She's well respected throughout the state for the work that she does, so she has a good handle on the shifting changes, and she works really closely with the other social service organizations in the city to try to
Struggling.
maximize all of the available options for folks.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the housing issue is just really putting a strain on what she has available for resources.
Do we know, is she, somewhat aside, is she, with the homelessness workshop we're doing later in the month, do we know if she's participating in that? Good,
Yep.
okay, that's great, because that's a huge, from the city's perspective, great.
Oh, yeah, no, she's been working with planning and myself, and she'll be one of the city presenters for sure.
Great. All right. I don't have any
You
further
don't have anything?
questions. No, I looked through.
Members of the
board.
public? Hi, Mark. Do you have anything today? All right. Excellent.
All right, we'll stop
All
the
right.
recording then.
How'd the match go?
The main
Really well. It was a pretty emotional night, though.
Yeah, man, senior night,
The
right?
senior night, yeah, and then one of Grayson's biggest competitors,